In the 1780s, the Industrial Revolution began in Britain, which was mainly a rural society where agriculture was the leading source of income and sustenance. People then started inventing new ways to farm and harvest more efficiently and effectively, as the land was of great political and economic influence. More innovations then led to the development of industry, and there was a drive for an abundant power source to fuel these large machines that would be able to do what many people were able to do over a long period of time in a matter of hours. Once the machines were set in place, workers traveled to work in the factories every day, marking the start of the working shift. Goods became mass-produced and there was a higher demand for them, lowering the price of such items so drastically that everyone could afford most goods that were reserved for the wealthy in the past. Because the machines outperformed agricultural jobs and left many unemployed, the social and economic changes led people to move into the city for work, opportunities, and convenience.
There were many factors that pulled people in rural communities to the cities. Cities were the centers of the Industrial Revolution. Factories sprung up in cities and jobs were created because of this. The growing demand for goods created a growing demand for workers, so jobs in the cities were abundant. The positive attitude towards technological advances promoted advances in the industry as a whole. As technology improved, production increased and production became increasingly efficient. A push factor is that the people in the rural communities had a poor standard of living. Rural communities lived in a state of poverty, and people struggled to provide for their families. Unemployment caused many to move from their rural communities looking for a better quality of life in the cities.
There is a huge contrast between the rural and city life. First of all, cities had a much larger population. When people from the rural areas arrived in the big cities, the lack of personal relationships came as a shock. This was because the migrators were used to working with their families. Second, many people came for the jobs. This was a common reason for the move from rural to urban, which led to an even larger urban population. Because they had once lived in villages, they were used to working in a putting-out system, where they were their own boss. When they moved to the city, they started to work in factories in which they had time schedules and standard wages. These conditions were unusual to them. Also, as more people came into the city, the standard of living slowly declined. The growing population caused the increase in pollution and sanitation issues. The rivers and streams were filled with waste because the technology of that time was not advanced enough to deal with the waste of such a generous population. The extraneous waste that entered the originally pure streams resulted in a lack of fresh water for consumption. Another problem that was created because of the population increase was air pollution. This complication was initiated through the burning of fossil fuels in factories. Housing also was not very spacious to accommodate the large populace. The conditions were so cramped that there were an average of 6 to a bed. All of these problems created the quick spreading of disease like cholera, typhus, dysentery, and tuberculosis. New classes such as the proletariat and the bourgeoisie emerged. Men worked most and received higher wages, but the introduction of child labor gave kids a cost-effective job for both the company and the family. This led to the cultivation of the socialist revolution. People were working for relatively low wages in bad environments and needed something to connect or relate to in bad times. The socialist revolution unified the proletariat class.
Today, most of the population lives in urban city areas rather than rural town areas. This is because many people moved and stayed in the urban areas for easy accessibility to work and an improvement of lifestyle. Although as more people moved into the cities and the conditions of living diminished, they eventually rose back up again after laws regarding sanitation and the rights for workers passed, incentivizing workers to stay.
The rapid advances in technology led to changes in many aspects of British life and class structure, and the lifestyles of British citizens were forever changed with the Industrial Revolution. The effects of the Industrial Revolution will continue to affect the modern world and the future of industry.